Okay. Hello. Is
Hi
this
there.
hi, are you Captain Cosmic?
Yes, that's me.
Okay. And you're going to talk about Tasseography, the art of reading abstract symbols.
Yep. That is
All
me.
right.
Hi,
Welcome to the
everybody.
fair. The floor is yours.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. I'm so excited to be meeting with you guys on Zoom today from the comfort of wherever we are. I'm super, super blessed. Thanks, everybody, for coming out and joining. So I have a slideshow presentation for you guys. And what I'm going to need, what I'm going to have everybody do is that at the top of your chat screen, there is a place in the right-hand corner that says view. And so when I put on my screen share, you'll be able to click that and click a view that says speaker or gallery in order to put your little window next to the slideshow so your little video screen is not covering up the slideshow at all. So let me pull it up. And I'll try to take questions at the end. Okay, so hopefully everybody can see that presentation. Again, at the top right corner of your screen for the Zoom window, you can click view and then click speaker or gallery view in order to put your window next to the PowerPoint. Okay, so we're going to be teaching about Tasseography, the art of reading abstract symbols. So what we're going to do in this class is we're going to be taking the divination practice beyond the cup. A little bit about me. My name is Captain Cosmic. I have been reading Turkish coffee for about 5 years. I'm a professional tarot reader. I've spent most of my earlier days dedicated to learning various types of divination methods, no matter how obscure they were. The fun thing that I like about these methods of divination that I'm about to go over is that you don't have to be a psychic to practice this. That in general, these modalities consist of different elements that allow you to produce a good reading for yourself or another. The key to going over this presentation today is that I want you to be able to be better able to read for yourself and to also connect further with your intuition. I'm going to slightly go over how to read a cup, but I'm going to kind of go through it quickly because the methods that I talk about should be able to translate across the different modalities that I cover. And so what do I have here? So what I like about this reading coffee cups and all of the modalities that I'm going to be covering today is that you don't necessarily need to ask a question, that it's actually better if you don't ask one, because you're just letting the messages naturally come to you. And so let's go ahead and go to the next slide. And so Tasseography, also known as tasseomancy, tasseology, is a fortune-telling method that interprets patterns in tea leaves, coffee grounds, or wine sediments. In more modern practice, residues of other beverages such as hot chocolate, beer, or juice can also be read and interpreted. So something about Turkish coffee readings, tea leaf readings, is that we don't read the liquid itself. We actually are reading the sediment and the residue that comes from it. But that's why we're taking this modality even further, because as we continue this presentation, we'll see that nothing is really stopping you from actually just reading the liquid too. So the term comes from the French word tassi, and it also derives from the Arabic loan word tasa, which in Spanish, tasa also means cup. And so the reason that Tasseography is kind of limited is because it suggests that you're just reading it from a cup, But then as I'm reading about the history about Tasseography, it talks about different medieval fortune tellers who would still practice this form of divination, but with other materials and methods, such as reading molten wax or scrying or different things like that. And so even though it implies practicing with a cup, you don't really need to. Like I said, I've been asked to read people's beverages, and at first I was like, no, I don't do that. And then I asked myself, well, why not? And I was like, if I know how to do a reading, then I can take those skills that I've acquired from Turkish coffee and apply them onto other things. So when we look at a cup, we're going to split it up like we would a tarot reading. So in tarot, you have a tarot spread, and it allows you to stay more focused within your reading. So you're not kind of just being like, what was this card pertaining to? And like the more specific your spread is, the more specific answers that you'll get. And so for cups, you can split it in various ways. For example, I do past, present, and future. Somebody could do the near future and the distant future. There's also the heart space, emotional, and physical body. So this cup is divided in such a way that I can demonstrate for you guys. So over here where it says left, I would often read that as the past. What I would do is that I would read the past from where the person drank. So when you drink a cup, you will see it kind of direct more towards where you drank, and that's where it's going to leave the most amount of residue. And so that's the past. Right here where it says front rim, that's going to be the present. And over here in the to the right, that's going to be the future. So the bottom of the cup over here, where you kind of start to see this heart over here, I read that as the heart space. So usually it has what we say in Turkish coffee, and everybody reads it differently. I was taught by a woman whose family was from Istanbul, and basically she taught me in her way. And so I stick very, very true to that. And you're able to do however you want to do, whatever works for you. And so with that heart space, how we actually read it is like the thicker it is, the thicker the residue is. If you look at that heart, it's really, really thick where you can't see through it. That's actually indicative of a very present heart, a heart that's fully present and is maybe feeling emotionally uplifted, emotionally present. Whereas if it came in really spotty, like in the image to the left, where you're able to kind of see through it, there's a lot of white coming through, that would indicate a heart that's kind of been like poured out, a heart that's really tired, a heart that, you know what I mean, isn't fully present in the same way as this one over here on the right. So let's talk about what makes a good reading. So once you start learning different divination modalities, you start to see that the technique for readings narrows down to this criteria. And so what I want to say about this is that, like I said, that as you start studying all this stuff, you really see that it can cross-reference each other. And it'll really depend a lot on your intuition. These are your own interpretations, your own hunches, your own feelings. The reason I added in the word good judgment here is because you do need to have a sense of good judgment as a reader, where you wouldn't just like, let's say you get a certain symbol, like a bear, and you can think about it in a way that's different for a man than maybe you would for a woman. You could think about it differently for someone who's younger than maybe somebody who's older. And so good judgment is just picking the symbols that are going to most likely best apply to the individual. Another aspect is symbolism, which is the animal totem, planetary signs, runes, etc. Another aspect is numerology, colorology, and astrology. And lastly, we have the elements, the 4 directions and seasons and things like that. Now, these are very, very bare bones. So I'm sure there's other criteria for other readers out there, but these are just some of mine that I've narrowed down. I'm not going to go into depth about numerology, colorology, or astrology. we do have a numerology presentation later on today by Timothy Wild, so you guys can check that out if you want to know more. Colorology is very basic. Think about how a color makes you feel versus a different color. And then most symbols have correlations with astrology. So let's go ahead and look at animal symbolism. And so take what you know about animal symbolism and use it to help your readings. And I want to talk briefly about this. So let's see what I got. But some very common animal symbolism that I've laid out here. For one, like the tortoise or the turtle means patience, slow and steady wins the race. A horse, like maybe on the chariot card in the tarot, suggests quickness, movement. Birds are messengers, and the type of bird determines the message. An eagle points to legal matters, a message from the government. A dove is peace and love. Think about what a crow might mean, what a vulture might mean. Here are some additional animals that I put in, and you can try to test yourself and see what you would think of as an intuitive message if you were to see one of these symbols in a cup or elsewhere. We have the elephant, cat, monkey, rabbit, snake, and the rat. And those animals, not gonna lie, are a little bit more easier. And in my experience being a Turkish coffee reader, I've gotten some animals that were really, really tricky. And so some animals you might know because you've heard about them your whole life. Maybe you've heard your mother's interpretation of an elephant your whole life. And so that's really, really stuck in your mind. But then you get an animal like a sloth and you're like, what does that mean? I've never heard that in the animal totem. And that'll be up to you and your intuition to impart what you think is best suited for that situation in a reading. These symbols are obviously going to be different from person to person. And the thing about doing kind of tea leaf and Turkish coffee readings is that every reader's going to read them differently, but they're not the one reading the cups, you are. So ultimately, it's going to matter how you interpret it. And so I would perhaps define a turtle, a horse, a dog much differently than you, and that's perfectly fine. The key with doing readings, at least with Tasseography, is to go with your first thought. Every time I've ever gone with my second thought, I was wrong. When I go with my first thought, I'm right. Like I said, some harder animals you might come across are like the camel, the alpaca, stuff I had to ask myself in that moment, what does a camel mean to me? And just going off of that. So here are some animals that I've seen in Turkish coffee cups. So these were showing up at the bottom of the cup in the heart space. So what I do with my clients is I have them take one finger and make one little mark at the bottom of the cup to make a wish, and then I read the final symbol. And so, for example, this is a wolf that I saw, and then on the left side, I see an elephant. When I showed the elephant to a couple people, they didn't see the elephant, they saw something else. That's totally fine. But I feel like I could see his little trunk right here, his bottom lip, his eye, his ear, his two front legs, and the wolf looks really similar to the emoji, so I don't really have to point that out. But this was really awesome because the wolf in this cup actually showed up for an individual who her spirit animal is a wolf. And it was quite unexpected for both of us, but we had a really good laugh once that came up, but good confirmation. Here's a photo that you might have seen in my promotion for the presentation. This is a cup where it was just so powerful. I was blown away as soon as it came through. It pretty much is showing spirit guides showing up. That we are protected, that we are shielded. Some people that I asked to see what they saw an eagle, they saw a wingspan, they see angels, they see a family. You can see kind of 4 figures at the bottom. That could be like a family. These figures above them, they can be, like I said, a spirit guide. It could also be a passed on loved one who's coming in to check on you and show you that you're protected. And I put in the photo to the right as a reference to kind of what I was feeling in that energy. So some more symbols, I marked them A, B, and C. These are some things to look out for when you're doing these type of readings. So when you're doing Turkish readings, tea leaf readings, you're going to want to be reading the negative and the positive spaces. So you can read the darker smudges, and you can also read the white space in them. You can hold the cup further back and look at the big picture, and you can also bring it real close in and look at the tiny details. So in figure A, this individual, Mario Baker, he pointed out that he saw a face, and this face was a little bit of a larger one that you would see if you pulled it back. Figure B shows these sort of like lines that are going up and up and up and up. My teacher taught me that those are indicative of travel. So like, let's say somebody has a trip coming up, they'll likely have one of these columns. This person might have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, even 6 destinations on a physical trip that they're probably going on. And then if you look closer down where like my little arrow is, I almost kind of see like a bird right here, maybe talking to its baby bird. It could be like a roadrunner, maybe even a dove. Over here, I kind of feel like I see like an owl in flight with its wingspan. And just really messing around with those energies. Remember that you don't have to read everything in the cup. These readings tend to be actually kind of short. They lean towards 5 or 10 minutes long because too much information kind of overloads the individual. So if you see these lines, it's kind of talking about traveling, at least in Turkish coffee. A lot of these things do translate over to tea leaf readings though. Another symbol to look out for is that at the bottom of the cup, this appears in some people's cups. It looks like, to be honest with you, it'll often look like a little nipple, a little bump at the bottom. It's an evil eye, a symbol of the evil eye, and that pretty much means that ill wishes, ill negativity, thoughts, and jealousy has been sent to the inquirer. And so what I have them do at the end of the reading is take any finger and squash it out, and that'll completely dissolve the evil eye energy. So these are some symbols. I don't per se use these, but I think they're a good starting off point where sometimes when I look at a cup, the imagery will be so vivid that it looks like a movie scene and I can just see everything so clearly. And other times things will be very, very simplified and rudimentary, almost like petroglyphs. And so you have things like a gateway. You might see little doorways and portals. You might see things that are telling you about the passage of time. You could see heart, moons, the sun, star. Look out for different things that are masculine and feminine. You know, you could see a cauldron, mountains. So let's say you see mountains. What does that remind you of? When I think of a mountain, I think of a really heavy duty trek. So when I see a mountain in people's cups, I'm telling them, hey, you might have some challenges up ahead. You know, like if I see like a hill, that's like a little challenge, and then a mountain's like a bigger challenge, just something to overcome. You could see, I've seen this before, storms, thunderstorms. I've seen lightning striking down. You can interpret that how you will. I've seen trees. I've definitely seen some campfires and camping trips. There's different things about energy and protections there. But go ahead and reference your own too. So from this point on, I basically want to start taking it beyond the cup. And so there's reading the cup, but then there's so much more. And the reason that this even was born or happened for me in my journey is because as I started reading Turkish coffee and I started getting really, really good at reading and identifying the symbols in these tiny little smudges, I started to see them everywhere. I started to see them in the skies, in the trees, in the water. I started to see them in the fabric of like the curtain shades. And I started to see them in the speckle in the wall. Have you ever looked at the grain in the wood and seen faces in it? It was almost like as soon as I had developed that keen eye for being able to detect those symbols, they were everywhere. And so it only expanded my spiritual expertise. And it was able to allow me to read the messages that are specifically for me. So now I can tell when I'm walking through an environment, when I'm taking a hike, when I'm going through a walk in the bosque, I can now better see and feel when my guides are trying to communicate to me. And so these are some sort of references that you can start to see in nature. So type of nature divination. So you'll start getting like stick letters and runes. You could see messages in twigs. It's been known that Sasquatch can do this, where they'll lay out twigs to be in certain symbols, runes, or letters that really call out to you. You might see tree bark spirits. This really confirms their presence. You could do water or fire scrying, where you're peering into water or fire in a very meditative state and able to really interpret the energy of it and receive the messages as a conduit. You can also connect to the weather. I've observed my mood having a direct connection to the weather. It changes according to what I'm feeling. Is that a coincidence? I think not. I think that all of us as individuals are connected to the earth. And so when the earth feels something, I feel something, and vice versa. So let's see what I got here. I also wrote down that you can read clouds. I love to stargaze. I love to sky gaze. So you can definitely read the symbols that are coming through in the clouds for you. There's crystal scrying and maybe reading rock formations, light orbs, sun rays. Feel free to think of more. My advice here was definitely to let nature speak to you, to put down any reservations you might have of it feeling kooky or weird, and just really allow it to come to you. Feel the world, feel the animals, feel the nature, connect to Mother Earth. It's one of those things where if you don't create time to be silent, to be observant, to tune in, you might miss all of the spirit messages that are trying to reach you. Just for kind of reference, I put in some pop culture images here where we have Grandmother Willow and Pocahontas. So I've seen this myself, where I went to Chewelah, Washington for the Psychic Sasquatch Spiritual Retreat. And within the trees, it's almost as if the trees have their own faces. And like in some of people's pictures, you are able to kind of like see like a Sasquatch face coming through the tree. And I do feel like spirit can't come in the physical in a body in the way like us. And I mean, they can, but we can't really perceive it. And so instead they come in through a physical medium, a physical conduit, which could be the tree, which could be the cloud. Here in this reference to Finn from Adventure Time, in this episode, the character Finn is playing God in his own life. And at one point, he wants to deliver a message, a divine message from his higher self down to his earthly self. And he isn't able to get his earthly self to hear him. So at this point, his earthly self goes and he's watching the sunset, and his higher self is able to come through a cloud and deliver him a message. So I'm saying, like, what if that's a nod to it actually happening to us in real life? Some other references, these are from Harry Potter. These just are kind of funny. This one reminds me of fire scrying. I've definitely seen some faces in fire before. This is Sirius Black delivering a message to Harry Potter. And then this is Dumbledore and Harry Potter. They're doing a very specific thing here in the movie, but essentially I think it's water scrying. They go into a very meditative state, peer into the water, and then are taken into another time and place. Here are some additional photos of what I'm talking about. So here on the left is a photo that I took at the Psychic Sasquatch retreat. These are two trees that have died and are a little brown. And to me, they look just like Sasquatch. The figure on the left is kind of walking out of this tree portal. And then the figure on the right is like peering behind the tree portal. And so it said that Sasquatch comes in and out of trees and portals and things like that. And it just felt like these were two together peering out, looking out at us. And like I said, I'm always reading little smudges and cups, so I couldn't help but just to think like, hey, is that Sasquatch? Another one is, this is an example of reading light orbs. Sometimes I've looked at light orbs and I've seen a circle and then I've seen a little being in it as if it's like an actual being flying in a light ship. This is a picture that somebody caught in Mount Shasta, and it looks like an ET being. They suggested it was an Arcturian being. Again, when I look at the twig rune symbols, I have actually found some of these before. The ones to the left are kind of just images I found from Google, and people have tied them together with string. So these are very like thoughtfully put together, but you might see some of these maybe even in a more basic form out in nature while you're taking a walk. I myself have seen one that looks like this one down here. It's kind of like a Y with like a line in the middle. And as soon as I picked it up, I could just tell that it was like laid out for me. They'll likely be very obviously placed for you in a way that you can't deny. And I just felt compelled to pick it up, and I looked up the meaning, and it was exactly pertaining to what I was feeling. And it was even confirmed for me a moment later when a white feather flew from the sky and landed in front of me. So you can take these symbols that you see along your walk and go look them up and see what your guides are trying to communicate to you. Here are some messages from the clouds. I love reading clouds. I'm someone who considers myself a star seed. And so we do a lot of work with the clouds and with the skies above. In the figure to the left, you can almost make out a dolphin. A lot of people really connect and work with dolphin energy. So that's really beautiful. And then over here to the right, it's a feather. Some people call that, I'm going to say it wrong, but it's like a sylph. And that can be looked up. I think it's SYLPH. And it just basically talks about feathers appearing in the clouds, which is definitely like a symbol of maybe archangels or something like that appearing for you. Over here, we have some UFO clouds. And like I said, I'm a star seed, so we love to look out for when we have visitors. It's kind of been said that UFOs love to cloak themselves within clouds because it's really easy for them to produce clouds in our atmosphere. And it's like the perfect incognito disguise for them. And so I guess at this point, I know I went through everything really quickly, but if anybody has any questions, I would love to answer them. I will go back to a beginning slide, and it was my first slide. Over here, this is a teacup. I quickly looked up a photo that I thought it's kind of felt like. You could maybe, I've often seen people like this where they're reading. I would say that maybe they're taking a time out or a moment to study, that they're taking up a new class or something like that. Except I would say that the figure on the left points to maybe a female because it kind of looks like she's wearing a dress. It could also signify a mother who's holding her baby, looking down at her baby, or maybe like a seamstress or somebody who's got some sort of passion that they're working with on their hands. I'll go back to the last slide. This is my contact info. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. You can send me an email if you have questions. You can book a reading with me on my Instagram, which is at CosmeCaptain with an underscore. I'm always posting free spiritual content and videos. I make sacred geometry jewelry, kind of like the earrings that I'm wearing today. Yes, these are mine. I sell them through the Cosmic Healing Shop, but just real quick before we wrap up, if anybody has any questions, you could put them through the chat or unmute yourself and ask at this time. Any questions? Thanks for visiting, guys.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
So I know you read with the Turkish coffee and you mentioned tea leaves. Can you use other liquids?
Absolutely. So some of the ones that were suggested in the slides is reading wine. I think that one would be really cool. I feel like you could probably read paint. I feel like you could read essentially any liquid, and you could do it in so many different ways. You can read the liquid itself and look at kind of the bubbles, the foam. You can read the residue of the liquid after you drank it. You could spill out the residue, the liquid onto a plate and read that. I've also seen the scrying method where you get a bowl of water and you pour melted wax, and then you read the patterns of the melted wax within the water. So yeah, I encourage you guys to read as many things as possible, because that is literally what I'm always doing here. Yeah, thank you.